That's the button I needed to click. Hello and welcome to the, 7th episode of the Story Mode podcast? Have we really been doing this for 7 months? It doesn't feel like it's been 7 months. Oh well, either way.
Yeah.
Welcome to the 7th episode of the Story Mode podcast. Joining me today is my lovely co-host, Lewis. How you doing today, man?
I'm doing good. So yeah, I'm Lewis.
We are aware that we were a little bit late. Sorry, we had some technical difficulties. We were using Skype, and then we got a link to use Zoom right when we were supposed to start. So that caused us to become about 10-minute-ish late, I think. So sorry about that. But thank you to everybody who waited around. And just full warning, this is a very spoiler-heavy show. Essentially, what we're going to do is we're going to sit down and we're going to talk about a lovely little game that we played called Contrast, and we are going to completely dissect that game from top to bottom. This should hopefully be fun. So we are joined with our guest today, Pagan Fox, filling in for Mike. How you doing today, man?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
What? Well, that's good to hear. So first off, Contrast. What's Contrast?
It is a video game.
It is a game, yes.
And Lewis appears to be frozen on my screen, which is... I'll try and sort this out. So, Lewis, can you do the, just give us a real quick description of what the game is while I try and figure out why you're frozen?
Maybe. Let's see. So you play the imaginary friend of a girl named Dee Dee, who's definitely is in an interesting situation with her family because her mother is working at I don't know what you'd call it, but it doesn't necessarily look like the most reputable job.
So in short, this is you. I'm just going to make Lewis disappear for a moment here.
BlindiRL.
Oh no!
No, apparently I can't make Lewis disappear. I don't know what's happening. Everything is breaking, which means this is a average episode of this show.
Yeah.
It's just so appropriate.
Live recordings, what can you do? We'll just work with that. He's moving now. So anyways, you basically spawn in and you're in a bedroom with this girl. Very small character, and you're playing this taller, almost not even human-looking character named Dawn. And very quickly you realize you're either that character's imaginary friend, but I like to think of it as the character's shadow. And it's a very strange world. Pagan, could you possibly give us a description of what the world in this game is like?
Oh, it's this weird mix of sort of a surrealist, light and dark sort of... Oh, man, I'm trying to...
Like, the world's almost crumbling in the corners.
Yeah, it almost seems like it's starting to collapse a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, entropy.
Yeah,
is the word I wanted.
Initially, when I first started playing, I thought it was a dream world. Like, maybe she's just dreaming all of this. Is this even real? Like, what exactly is happening? Like, I don't even know. It was very strange and kind of hard to place my finger on. But yeah, no, it's a very interesting world. I think that we do need to get right off the bat, we need to just state that this game has issues. It has performance issues, it has control issues. There's just some things about it that are kind of screwed up.
The difficulty curve has an overhang.
Really? Oh.
Well, at the end, I think it
ramps up. Yeah, it pushes the precision platforming. It's a 3D platformer with puzzles. It's a pretty simple little game overall, but the story kind of starts off, and you straight up realize that okay, your mom's a nightclub singer. She sings in cabarets at night to make a living, and you and your shadow sneak out and to go watch your mom sing. And very quickly you realize that this little character that you're following around, Dee Dee, her mom's husband, is a crazy gambler character, shifty guy, working with the mafia, not a great person, is trying to get back together with her mom, saying, oh, I have this job, I'm going to make it big this time, this is going to work, we're going to become rich, it's going to be awesome, basically. One
I
more
thought it
job.
was less that I'm going to become rich, and more that I'm going to be able to pay off these debts with this guy that wants to break my arms and throw me in the bottom of the river.
Yeah. Basically, he's trying to pay off his pile of debt, and it's well, it's up to you guys to decide whether or not he's actually doing a good job of that. But to pay off these debts, what he's doing is he's organizing a fair, and he's hired who turns out to be Dee Dee's real father to be like the lead act, and he's this crazy illusionist guy who you get introduced to right at the beginning, and her stepdad, I guess, is talking to him saying, listen, like I need you in the show, I'll get you the money. And the game takes you on this really interesting journey where you follow these characters and you get to learn all about like their relationships, and it actually does a really interesting job of like intertwining. But there's something that I need to stress. The only physical objects in the entire game that are like creatures, like humans, are Dee Dee, the character that you follow, and yourself. Everybody else is a shadow, which is really weird. Especially initially, I thought the game was bugging out. Like,
Not sure if artistic choice or graphical error.
The first 5 minutes of that game was very confusing for me. Like the opening cutscene, I'm like, wait, what? Why isn't the model loading? Like, I actually
I verified my cache like 5 times. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, no, I actually restarted the game once. So this leads to some very interesting situations where you're looking around and you're like in a crowded space and you can hear voices and people moving around and talking and conversations and glasses clinking, and there's nothing and you don't see anything, and it's very strange. And then quite quick, shortly after, I'll like you encounter her father, and I'm stumbling here. I need help. I'm gonna be honest. Can either you guys back me up here?
The thing about this game, and I'm gonna kind of jump ahead real quick, is that it sets up this really interesting story in Act 1, and then kind of goes nowhere for 2.5 acts.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like Act 1, it sets up this really interesting setup. So, you play the imaginary friend named Dawn, have a little girl named Dee Dee, whose mother is working at the I forget what you called it, but is working at the Ghost Note as a singer, who is married to the husband who the mother told Dee Dee had walked out essentially, but she had actually kicked him out after his debt's been too high. But he has this plan to get it back, his debts away from the guys who want to break his legs, and that involves getting Dee Dee's real father, the amazing Vincenzo, and it just sets up this really interesting thing. And then kind of in Act 2, it's like, oh yeah, so his plan was to create the circus, and hey, the circus is made and everything's going wrong, and of course Dee Dee has to go around and fix it.
And because she's actually the daughter of this amazing illusionist, she's kind of a genius when it comes to fixing things. So let's just kind of do what we normally do. What did you not like about the game, Liz? What was bad? We'll figure out what was good. Just story and world-wise, world building.
It's interesting because, I feel like this game was pretty good itself, but it had a lot more potential. Like, I was talking about story-wise. Act 1 was really good and really well laid out. Act 2 did really nothing. And Act 3 kind of quickly sort of just, I don't know how to describe it.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Knowing a little bit about the development history of this game, they switched publishers twice and lost a bunch of funding towards the end. And they ended up getting published by Focus Home Interactive. They were supposed to be an EA Games release initially, and then they were picked up by Sony and were supposed to be a PS3 exclusive, and then got dropped, and then were picked up by Focus. So it had a really weird development cycle and got put out early. To me, it kind of feels like they took like a chunk of story and then were told, hey, you have to finish this game a lot quicker than you thought you initially had to, and then suddenly were given more time and then had that time taken away from them again. Because the weirdest, I'm going to straight up state the ending of this game. So in short, everything works out. Dee Dee sorts out her mom and her stepdad and their relationship, sort of, and they hug and whatnot. It's all adorable. She fixes the fair, and then the great Vincenzo, who turns out to actually be her father, literally steps out of the shadow and pats her on the shoulder. And it's interesting because during his act, he states, there are multiple dimensions. And in other dimensions, people are only shadows. And I'm wondering if that's just him spewing bullshit for his show, or if they're actually trying to say something with that.
Did he say that they are only shadows?
Yeah, he's like, they appear just as shadows. I don't know. What do you think about this play?
I mean, and part of it is, I think it fits a lot of the aesthetic for stuff like this. Because if you look at Dee Dee as a character, and everything that she has to do...
Just ignore the cat.
I am. You know, it sort of fits that as a kid like that, looking at all these adults and everything they're doing, they may as well be shadows to him.
Yeah.
And if you go back to, like, her biological father being like, there are dimensions where, like, you know, people are shadows and nothing else. Maybe he's special and he can see that, and because he's the daughter, or she's the daughter, and maybe she can see that as well. I feel like it serves the story a little bit, but it serves the theme of the game more than the story specifically.
I think the entire game is just a... what's the word I'm looking for? A allegory for raising a child poorly. And the child can become trapped in their own world. And I think that they use the idea of their separate dimensions, and Dee Dee is just lost in this other dimension. That is her dream world, where she sees Dawn, the character that you play as, which is her shadow, among other things. So I don't know. I think this game really takes some really very interesting steps towards creating a awesome world, and things are breaking on my end horribly. This is
still
problems. Yeah, I'm dropping my bitrate. I think that Zoom is overloading my internet. Anyways, yeah. So I really, really, really like the world that they've built here. It's just a pity that the game seems to fall apart a bit in places. It seems to lose as you referenced with the story seeming to fall apart a tad. Hang on a second. I think I can fix this. Anyways, sorry, I just fixed the overlay and I'm happy now. But yeah, no, it's got this really interesting feel to it, and this amazing atmosphere, just taking the whole kind of past, almost future tech and pushing it all together into this really cool world. And it's just such an interesting story, especially with the way it describes dimensions and the way it describes, like, issues with family and growing, like, moving along with this and just exploring, like, this little event in this family's week, almost.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, can I interrupt real quick in that?
Absolutely.
You know, there's this sort of sense to me that there was supposed to be this twist.
Yes.
That, you know, they give you this setting, but they don't really explain it. That they sort of, you know, all this weird stuff, everyone's shadows, and they sort of give you this implication that you're not real. You're more like an imaginary friend. You're whatever like that.
But Vincenzo looks at you and acknowledges you at the end. He
Yeah,
acknowledges
and at the very end, you know, he reaches his arm out and not a shadow, and he acknowledges you. And I felt like that was supposed to be a twist. That, like, hey, yeah, you are real. You know, this.
Dun dun dun! You've been real this whole time.
But if that was supposed to be some big twist, they completely spoil it with the collectibles. So throughout the game, you have these little blue glowing things, and you can pick them up and you can look at them. They have little things. And all throughout the third act, it's like, oh, hey, look, you know, thing with shadows, a thing with shadows interacting with the world, you know, theories of multiverses. Oh, okay, so it's going to reveal that I'm actually real. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for spoiling that for me, game.
Well, it's not even, like, spoiling in the sense that it just went out and said, hey, you know, because that would just be a reveal. But it was, I feel, the foreshadowing was extremely heavy-handed. Like,
yeah.
No subtlety at all. I remember I was discussing the other day a little bit about what I thought about the story, and I agree with you a lot, actually. I feel like it fell down basically after the first act and basically spent the rest of the time floundering.
Yeah.
I mean, I liked the way the game played. It was interesting, but as far as the story goes, I was, pretty unimpressed.
Yeah.
I think for me that twist at the end, I'm not the sort of person who looks at collectibles. Okay, so I looked at the collectibles after the game was over, which is usually what I do. And I also do that with audio logs too. I'll listen to them all after the game's done, unless I can walk while I'm listening to them. And it's like, I didn't have that problem, right? So when I hit the twist, it was like, it was really weird. But I guess I just kind of assumed that you were real the entire time. I don't know. I just think that maybe, like, that there was the twist at the end, right? But I think it's just the chunks in between that just made the game interesting for me. I loved the interactions, like, with the objects in the world that would put the big spotlights on the wall, where you get like the silhouette of her mom just saying something and talking with her father, or arguing with somebody, or a conversation between two characters. I feel that they did an excellent job of pushing a story forward while seeming to not have enough time. You know what I mean? Like they had a very short period of time to tell this story of an event in this family's life, and I think they did a pretty good job of it. I think I'm like one of the I know this game had kind of a mixed reception, right? Critically, it got panned. Straight up, it got panned. It has positive reviews on Steam, but a lot of things have positive reviews on Steam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think something about this game just touched me. I sat down, I beat it in one sitting the first time, and I actually briefly speedran it. I wrote it. I know how to route that game, which is why I beat it in 45 minutes for today. It's.
Can I say something that's like really off topic in terms of all this, but I feel like is indicative to what I think is the core problems with this game.
Go ahead.
Very early in the game, so before you actually go into that ghost node, right?
Yeah.
You're just outside, and Dee Dee's talking to you because she was just talking about the dancers, and so she says, I want to be a dancer or an acrobat just like you. And like that's the only indication that that your character is supposed to be this acrobat. And I'm going to make a real quick comparison to a game that I know you haven't played yet, Blind, which is Psychonauts, where you also play as an acrobat, which happens to be from the circus. And
oh, you're talking about Psychonauts?
He's a big fan.
Yeah,
he really likes Psychonauts. It was good. Just go on.
Anyways, like compare the character from this game, Dawn, to the character from Psychonauts, Raz, and the only thing that really signifies Dawn as being an acrobat is maybe her outfit, if you can somehow recognize that, and the fact that Dee Dee flat out just says, you're an acrobat. Whereas in Psychonauts, your double jump, it has this front, somersault that looks like an acrobat. You show proficiency on, swinging on stuff. And, a lot of the characters' movesets were influenced by the fact that Raz was an acrobat. Whereas Dawn, just she has this awkward jump. There's really nothing about her movement, her animation that made it feel like she was an acrobat. And yeah, that's a small nitpick, but that kind of carried over through the whole game. There was just these little problems where it's like, it did a lot more telling instead of showing. It
yeah,
didn't
I was gonna say
really...
it did a lot of telling and not a whole lot of showing.
Yeah, I think that also fits in with just kind of the unfinished nature of a lot of parts of this game. Like, to give you an idea, there's no stairs animation for this game. You walk upstairs, you just kind of float up the stairs. I don't know if you noticed that.
You kind of glide.
There's never actually any scenes where you're supposed to be walking upstairs. It's always a ramp. But there are a few sets of stairs in the game, and if you actually turn around and walk up the stairs, it's the weirdest looking animation you've ever fucking seen. There's a few points in this game where it genuinely feels like they didn't finish it. Like, there's a few cutscenes where Dee Dee doesn't open her mouth. Actually. Like she just...
Yeah.
Well, knowing what I do about the dev cycle for this game, I mean, if there's a couple cut corners, I'm not going to throw the game on the grill for it.
Yeah.
But when it's glaringly obvious, I still get marks off.
I personally don't think that it fell down as much as I think you two think. Mostly because I was always looking forward to the next interaction between her mom and X character or her dad. The voice acting in this game I personally feel is a little lacking in a couple places, but Vincenzo was an interesting asshole. He's a complete idiot, and I liked him talking to people. Those mafia guys were interesting, and I also thought that the flavor text in the newspaper article that you can find about them was also interesting. It's like, oh, well, this guy was accused of murdering 2 people. Oh, he's a lovely character.
Yeah.
And he was just harassing your mom. I don't know. I really liked the interactions between these characters. They were all larger than life and kind of caricatures, which I do like. And they had not super bubbling personalities. Like, this game doesn't have a huge amount of character development, but they have enough, and they're specific enough characters that you can just kind of be like, okay, I know what this guy is. You know, her stepdad is a swindler. He's a swindler. He borrows people's money and he tries to do jobs that don't work, right? And then Vincenzo is, I am Mr. Magnificent. I am perfect. Nothing can be better than me. But he also has big debts, right? They state that earlier on. Like, he needs money, which is why he's agreed to do this.
Yeah, I have money. Look at this suit. I'm staying at the really nice hotel.
I'm currently staying at a 5-star hotel and I have a really fancy suit on. You rented that and you beat somebody up and took their room. It's not that hard. But no, it's. I also think that some of the puzzle design's lacking. I don't know about you guys, but this game has a very interesting mechanic, which I do think we do need to mention, where you can shift in and out of shadows. It's a 3D platformer, but if there's a shadow on the wall, you can blink into the shadows and then walk along the shadows. So it becomes a 2D platformer in points. In fact, there's a little mini game in the middle of the game where the game literally becomes Limbo. Briefly. Like, it's Limbo.
Yeah.
And I really like that about it. I think it varies the gameplay. But there is a few points when I actually managed to completely break it. If the light goes dark, I actually got stuck in a wall once. I couldn't get out, and then I blinked out of the wrong side of the wall and fell through the world.
Oh, brutal.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, there's a lot of kind of really random issues like that. I mean, what I was going to mention is that mechanic of going into the shadows, I think was really interesting. But one thing I had noticed was a compromise to make that work. So the game runs in the Unreal Engine, and I have developed a little bit in there, and it has a really nice baked lighting engine so that you can put lights around each base to say these things are static, they don't change, and it will just render the entire scene, and it looks really good. And that's actually a lot of what made the game look good. But then it creates this sharp contrast between the real-time lights, which is what's used to actually make the harsh shadows, and the pre-generated lights, which all just creates the soft lighting and very, muted kind of contrast. It looks jarringly different, and it feels kind of weird to cut between the two.
I feel like those lights do need to stand out, though, because you need to know that I can jump on this. It's like, just in a level design sense. Apparently, you're giving Mike motion sickness, by the way.
You're giving Mike motion sickness?
Yes, you're giving Mike motion sickness. I need to
Well, Mike, I'm holding up my camera with my arm, so...
He's holding a phone. We're actually in the same room right now. We're a few feet away.
Maybe it'll be better if you just turn the camera around. That might make it a little bit easier. Yeah, there we go.
And I have a cat toy. But anyways, because my cat's being an asshole. Anyways, now that we've just destroyed everybody's immersion, what were we talking about? Right, graphics, like the shadows and whatnot, and how it's done.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense why it needs to be different, but that doesn't take away the fact that it is jarring.
But it needs to be different in just a straight up level design sense. Like, if I'm looking at a thing, I'm like, I don't know if I can hop on that or not. Like, if every single light in the game where I'm not necessarily supposed to jump on it, if every single light in the game was like that, it would just be weird. I think that this game has an excellent art direction. Personally, I really like the style they went with, especially with kind of the it's lower end graphics. Like, it looks kind of dated even, considering the game only came out in 2014. It's very simple, but I think they did a lot with a little, and I really like the aesthetic of the game, just the general art design. I do agree though, it is a little jarring seeing those different shadows, but
Yeah.
Also, you have this dash ability, which
Can totally break the game if you use it wrong.
I was gonna say it breaks the camera.
Well, that too.
If you try dashing towards the camera, you can actually just run through walls. Fun fact. If you don't see the wall that you're going towards, your character will actually just fly straight through the wall.
Yeah. You said you were speedrunning this game?
Yes, I know the routes of this game. I'm really
Does
bad
the
at
dash
them.
actually make you move faster than walking? It
Oh, a
feels
lot
like
faster.
I can tell.
You never stop dashing if you're running the game.
Okay.
Also,
'Cause I kept dashing everywhere when I was playing. And
Roof
this is-
textures aren't actually textures. You can jump through them. So the entire point of the speedrun is to get on top of the roof.
Yeah.
If you can get onto the roof and then you fall through and then you fall into the next level. The world record for the game is like 4 minutes. But yeah, no, it's one of those games. But we're not talking about speedrunning.
Yeah.
Tactics. I think we should just talk about the final act of the game. The difficulty spike.
Actually, real quick, I wanted to say one more thing about the mechanics.
Shoot.
Which is, it's an interesting mechanic when you have, being able to shift into these shadows and do shadow platforming.
Mhm.
But, this game does have some issues, and I could excuse most issues, but when your main mechanic is platforming through shadows, the two things you don't want issues with is platforming and shadows. And it has a bounty of glitches for both. I mean, platforming, you can get stuck on things way too easily. The rules for how you get popped out of a shadow is really, it's kind of broken to me. I kept popping out when I really didn't feel like it should have, and it made certain sections way more difficult than it had any right to be. And with the shadows, I noticed a lot of like little aesthetic issues. There's a point with the umbrella that if you just turn just a little bit, like the umbrella becomes invisible. And
Oh yeah.
there's one part where you go into Vincenzo's lab, and the shadow for Vincenzo and the shadow for Didi don't match at all.
There was one point, actually, Vincenzo's arm like levitated, like the shadow for his arm like levitated off of his body and then back on again. The first time I played through, it didn't do that the second time.
Yeah. No, I saw things like that as well. The joints between things and shadows are never quite solid. That entire scene where you play the princess just has a number of those issues.
I think for me, this game just grabbed me in a way, and I love it despite its faults. So I'm just going to be kind of sad and happy positive when you guys say mean things about it.
Well, I mean, okay,
I know it's
I will
buggy.
say this.
I know it's broken
This
as
is
shit.
not the most broken game I've ever played.
No, you
This is
played
not
Midnight Club.
Close. Midnight Club is definitely pretty bad, and it's definitely worse, though I don't think that's even the worst game I've played. But this is not the most buggy game. And the problem, to me, is more like I can handle a buggy game if the story is really good. And for me, the story just is okay.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe for me, it's just the setting of the story. I really like that setting. The kind of grimy, future past, almost steampunky kind of Bioshock-esque worlds just are incredibly interesting to me, just in general. I don't know. You were about to say something?
I was. Did you notice?
Yeah. You opened your mouth.
If I could summarize my thoughts on it, I'd basically say the world had an interesting setting and premise, and I felt like there was more to learn about it than I was allowed to learn. There's not revealing certain bits of information and leaving things ambiguous or leaving hints, subtle ones. But then there's just not telling the player a lot of things. And if you don't tell them a lot of things, and there's no real your curiosity about, finding out what it is, it just ends up leaving you in this point that, well, why did I... Like, it looked interesting, but I don't care about it at all. Because I wasn't allowed to try to find, a more information that I wanted. And that's how the game falls down for me.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. It's a very interesting world, and unfortunately, they didn't tell an amazing story in it.
Sadly.
Yeah.
But for me, it's I like stories about dysfunctional families, and that's what this game was. And there's one thing that I wanted to mention in this game. It has a very interesting fail state, actually. There's a sequence earlier on when you're going to go meet, or not meet, but sneak in and encounter, or trying to encounter your stepfather and mother fighting in his hotel room. And there's this shadow on the wall. And up until now, you occasionally would get these cutscenes which are just like giant projected shadows on the wall, right? And it's just kind of a discussion with her, and it's a puzzle. You're supposed to hop onto her, like hop into the shadow and hop onto her leg, and then hop onto her cigarette and go up over her head, hop onto your stepdad's head, and then down and through the door. And then you encounter them on the balcony. And then they see you, and they're like, "Oh, you're here. Why are you here?" And then they stop. But if you don't do that, and you just stand there and you watch this play out, she actually just straight up turns around and shoots him.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because the game fails out. It acts like you died, which is very interesting. I actually kind of wish that they went straight up Far Cry with that and just played credits. But they didn't do that, unfortunately. But no, that was one of the most... It was just a really interesting decision to me. It's like, oh man, like I am in this world and this world is alive. I don't know why. It just... That moment to me was just really, really cool. And I really like it when games do things like that. Like, hey, like, I'm so used to being in a game where it's like, oh, someone's getting beaten up over there, 2 people are dying over here, and oh god, you gotta get to the main room to do this thing, and I'm just like walking around in the back room looking for a collectibles. Like, oh, it's a game, it's not gonna go anywhere. But I really like it when a game's like, no, you have to move. Like, this is a thing that is important, and if you don't pay attention to it, it will hurt you. You know what I mean? And I like that just as a design decision. I think it's an interesting thing.
I mean, I will point out that to get that ending you're talking about, you don't just wait at that moment. You have to get across, go through the door, and then backtrack, and then wait.
Yeah. But either way, you have to wait for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, it's because games like this, they don't normally have that sense of urgency.
Yeah.
Like, you know, if you can see that there's an altercation happening, but you haven't reached, like, the flag point yet, you feel like, oh, well, I'm just going to walk around and, like Blaine said, like, I'm just going to try to find a collectible. But then for having to turn around and then be like, oh, and by the way, bang, game over. You don't see that a lot, and that was probably one of the things I like better about it.
It's interesting because, like, it's a linear platformer, right? And then when you have, like, that shock and awe moment of, that just happened.
They pulled a Call of Duty 4 on us.
Call of Duty. I never actually played COD 4.
Well, for the uninitiated, it's the first COD game where they killed off the and sorry alert, main character. As a part of a cutscene.
Is that the no Russian thing?
No, that's
the I'm going to
Modern
shoot
Warfare
people
2.
in an airport.
Oh.
Yeah.
No. It was we're getting off topic, but a nuke was dropped, and he was in a helicopter, and he dies cold, alone, and burning in a radioactive field.
So, my childhood? Cold, alone, and burning in a radioactive field?
Cold, alone, and with severe radiation bones.
Sounds like my...
Hashtag me IRL.
But no, I want to talk about the difficulty spike.
Okay.
Because I genuinely feel like there was another level in the middle. Also, that puzzle with the ball is completely broken.
Yeah.
But no,
Wait, which puzzle are you talking about? Because there's a lot of puzzles I'd say are completely broken.
The one with the music stuff, and you have to get the ball onto the music thing. I actually completely...
Oh, yeah, that one's broken.
I broke that puzzle so badly, I actually got the ball out of the contraption and ran around with it for a bit, and had to reset the game because I couldn't figure out where to put the ball, and I was like, oh, it's supposed to... Oh, I broke it. So, no, there's a massive difficulty spike towards the end. Platforming, puzzle difficulty, and puzzle obscurity. And I feel like there is some genuine bad puzzle design towards the end, especially.
Yeah. I'm not even sure I solved the puzzle that you're talking about correctly, because when I looked up a guide, it was like, you know, you get the ball up there by moving the thing, right? And so you get to the cannonball thing onto the platform, and then you walk up the stairs, which are broken. And 9 times out of 10, if you try to jump up there, it won't work. But if you're in the just right spot and you jump just right, you'll get up there.
There's actually a few places in this game where puzzles can just be skipped completely.
Well,
if
doesn't
you
that just say
set
it
up the
all?
shadows correctly.
Because it's like, I'm not even sure if I beat this right, but it's there.
I mean,
I've gotten past it.
have you ever played Trine? Like, that's just Trine. Just in 2 words. It's broken. But I love Trine, and Trine is one of those games where if you can figure out a way to get past the puzzle, you can get past the puzzle. And I kind of like it when a game's just like, here's like 15 different ways to possibly solve a puzzle. And I'm not totally sure if they did that intentionally or not, or if that's just bugs. It might just be bugs, unfortunately. Do you have anything? Does anybody have anything they want to say? Lewis, do you have anything specific you would like to bring up related to the game?
In terms of the difficulty spike,
No, let's just in story wise.
Because I mean, there were some things in terms of the difficulty spike. Because, to me, I often look at puzzle games and say, okay, how many times did I have to refer to a guide? And the answer to this one was, I mean, not as much as Portal. Actually, had a lot of issues with Portal, but there was at least one point where I just, I spent 15 minutes and I just said, okay, that's it. I can't figure it out. I need to look this up.
Which puzzle?
The one we were just talking about, in
Oh,
fact.
the one with the ball? Okay. The only puzzle that really gave me a hard time, which is funny because I can beat it in about 4 seconds now, is the one with the elevators.
Yeah, we were discussing that privately the other day, and I was stuck in that for like half an hour. I was like, my brain backfired, and I couldn't.
Oh yeah, I think I had to look that one up as well because I couldn't. Now that I think about it,
you lower one chandelier down, put the other one down, hop onto it, hop up, run all the way around, push the fire alarm. There we go up. You hop onto it, and climb up. Done.
Yeah. No, the thing I had to look up was this cart, so it's casting a shadow, so I have to put it somewhere to set up. No, you have to just shove it into the elevator. What?
To be fair,
this is a game about shadows.
To be fair, the elevator was sparkling.
The whole thing was sparkling.
That's like saying,
ADHD nightmare, because everything
if they
glows.
didn't want me to push the cart into the elevator, they shouldn't have made the door big enough. If they didn't want me to break in, they shouldn't have made the thing out of glass.
Yeah, there's a lot of very convenient panes of glass that you can walk through using shadows.
Yeah. There's just a lot about that game that just it was really obtuse in very badly designed ways.
Yeah. I'm gonna defend it again. This is also their first game.
Wasn't this a game like Grow Home where it was just a smaller team from a AAA studio?
No, it was an indie studio that got picked up and then dumped, and then picked up again, and then dumped again, and then they kickstarted their second game, which got incredibly well funded, called We Happy Few, which looks really interesting, and I want to play it, and it's coming out in early access, and I want to play it. Freaky game about drugs and post World War II in England, and it takes place in Wales, and everybody has super thick accents, and I need to play it at some point. No, it is a really small team though. It's like 12 people. It's quite a small team, and as I said, this game had a very short development cycle, and they were bounced around publishers a whole bunch, and then the game got basically cut budget wise.
So they basically just had to ship it out anyway.
Yeah. I remember hearing about it at PAX because the guys on Co-optional played it, so Total Biscuit and his crew, they all played it at PAX. And then they're like, oh yeah, it's coming out like in a year and a half or something. And they came out like 6 months later. Not even. It was like a couple months later, it was just out. And I was like, oh, I remember this. and so I picked it up and I was like, oh, this is fun. And then it just kind of ended. I think that part of me is like, I had so little trouble with the puzzles in this game. Like, I'm really good at puzzle platformers. I don't mean to brag, but I can't play a first-person shooter worth anything. But
humble brag.
Well, I mean, I may not be great at puzzle games, but I consider myself good at platforming games. But when there's one part in Act 3 where you have to get over to a shadow and there are two pillars in your way, And if you try to dash through one, you get popped down, you hit your head on the second pillar, and you fall down, and you have to do that 20 some odd times. I get frustrated. I get annoyed, and I want to quit.
Yeah, you beat the game 3 times. There's some, there is some.
Well, once
like,
you figured it out.
there is some
Okay,
weird
2.5.
tricky. Okay, there is some really weird tricky platforming in the game. Yeah, but I feel that once you just kind of figure it out, it's really not that bad. I mean, once you're thinking with portals, to speak, it's really not that
Well, there's
bad.
an achievement that's now you're thinking with shadows.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a cute reference.
Yeah. There's also a TARDIS in the first level.
Yep.
If you peek over a fence at the entrance to the... Right after when you climb over the billboards, if you peek over the fence on the far right, there's just a frickin' TARDIS chilling there. And there's also a UFO, a crashed UFO in that game.
Yeah.
So aliens. Confirmed.
Yeah. Speaking of which, that first point where, Dee Dee's saying that you're too big to fit between those bars to get out of that one area.
Bullshit. She's totally not.
Yeah,
to be.
yeah, you could fit. I checked.
I just, what the fuck do you mean?
Yeah.
I can't fit between. Are you calling me fat? That was my initial reaction to that. Was there's actually some weird story, like just weird video gamey things. Like her mom leaves, and literally 3 seconds later, and her mom's like, "Oh, don't sneak out again." Her mom leaves, and like literally 2 seconds later, it's just, "Oh, she's gone."
Yes, I am leaving now. It's like yelling at the top. It's like she can hear you.
Follow me.
Just outside the door.
She left like 3 seconds ago. I was expecting her to pop back in and be like, "What did I just say?"
Yeah, like at least wait for her to pull out of the driveway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like learn to run away, you silly kid. No wonder you always get caught.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, guys, do you want to do some thought summarizing?
Like what?
Like,
Before that,
overall thoughts?
one thing I want to point out
Like
that I've said some negative things about this game. There's one thing I wanted to praise, which is the beginning of Act 2. There's a painting you can interact with, or a picture. I don't know what it is, of the parents, and it says, these are usually in the basement. They're only out when Daddy's here. And then she says something. I forget the exact quote, but it's like, the stories where the princess realizes that her parents aren't really her parents and that she's actually a princess. Does she get to see them still?
Yeah, it was in the trailer that I played at the very beginning.
I think that made me cry. That really hit home.
I think there's a lot of things in this game that just hit home for me, and just I want to praise the story. I think they did a really good job, and because it's in such a nice small short little 3-hour package, for me it was just watching a nice little B movie, and it had a feel good ending and a neat twist because I wasn't paying attention to the collectibles the first time I played through it, and I think it's just a really interesting little world with some unfortunate design decisions in the middle. And I really, really, really like it. And just little touches and nuances like Lewis just said with the painting on the wall and the interactable objects that cause the projections to appear with the little bits of storyline. Even just little things like her mom singing and a crowd talking, or it's got so much character and so many interesting ideas behind it. It's just, I want to see more. I really would like to see a sequel to this game, and I don't think it's ever going to happen. I just want to see more in that world. Just more of that weird dreamscapey, interdimensional stuff. Pagan, what do you think?
You know what? I'm kind of lukewarm overall toward the game, but if I could summarize my thoughts, it was a good game, or wanted to be a good game, but it was missing money and time. I feel like if it had had the proper dev cycle, I would be saying a lot more positive things about it. There definitely are merits. There's definitely a lot of story touches and moments and things that you can look for, but I don't think I can excuse the programming issues, the difficulty spike, the being able to break like 45% of the puzzles. Like, it's You know, I needed more time, and I can't blame it for that because the devs couldn't do anything about it. But ultimately, the end product is what it is.
Yeah. It's a flawed gem. Can we say that?
I hope it gets a remaster.
It won't.
Well, if it did, I'd treat it more kindly.
Yeah. I mean, my final opinion is actually very similar to that. Like, if I had just saw the first act, I would have said, yeah, this seems really good and really exciting. But after playing all 3 acts, I can basically just say, it's okay. And yeah, I understand there were some developmental issues. There was issues with money and time and all that stuff. But we're not here to review the developers. We're not here to make excuses for, you know, the time that they had. We're here to review the final product. And in the end, it was just okay.
Yeah, I think I can take a neat idea in earnest, and here's a honest thing that we made, and it's broken, it's falling apart in a few places, or it's like when a child hands you a picture of you, and it's like, oh, it's a self-portrait. My head is square, you know, and it's like
True, but when a child hands you a portrait, they don't say, "Okay, that'll be $15."
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. I mean, I'm not saying it's bad. It is, I think, worth playing for some price point.
It goes on sale for $2 very frequently. I'm just saying.
Yeah. You know, something like, you know, if it's on sale for that low, yeah, certainly pick it up. But, you know, it's also not a masterpiece. I'm not going to print it out, put it on the wall, and frame it. You know, that...
You might just keep it on the fridge for a couple days.
I don't know about you, but I wouldn't mind a pinup of Dawn on my wall. Just saying. She's pretty. That's not why I like this game. That got weird. Help me. Somebody save me. I'm in a hole now.
Sound off in chat if you want to see what's on Blind's wall.
Yeah.
What's behind him?
Actually, what is that poster?
Hold on, let's Tsubasa Chronicles.
Ooh.
And then we've got Nausicaa over here.
And right next to it, the Japanese Scott Pilgrim poster for no reason.
Yeah, which is behind the
yeah, it got banished behind
shelf.
the bookshelf. To be
Anyway.
fair, it was there before the bookshelf. The bookshelf moved in. Because the bookshelf was where the air conditioner is now. And but anyways, the apartment organization, to say the least. You know, I think this has been a fun episode. I kind of expected my heart to get broken a little bit because I know I have no valid reason to be attached to this game. I think I like it just for the world that it creates and the story that it tells within that world, even though it's clearly missing something. And what can you do, you know? But yeah, no. Thanks, Lewis, and thanks, Pagan, for your time. And I'm probably gonna make another pot of coffee for this guy. Not that guy. I thought that you were gonna come over into my screen, but you didn't.
let's do this
For this guy.
Yeah.
And thank you very much for watching this episode of the StoryMode podcast. Lewis, do you have anything that you would like to plug and state or anything? I'm sure you have lots of projects going on that are interesting.
Yeah, but nothing that I think is at a point worth plugging.
Just what's your Twitter handle? To follow him on Twitter at LRFLEW, just like his name.
Sure, but I never tweet. If you're gonna follow something, follow me on Twitch.
No, follow him on Twitter because he never tweets, so you're not missing anything.
Yeah, you won't be plugging up your feed with anything.
Yeah, it's a harmless follow. Also follow him on Twitch, and I stream here all the time. So if you're watching right now, you're probably wondering what exactly is happening. And this guy, I don't know what he does. He comes to my house sometimes.
Come to your house, drink your beer, drink your coffee, have your bagels.
Yeah, literally. But no, he streams Dark Souls now and again, don't you?
Yeah, I do. Actually, if you guys want to give me a follow, that'd be cool. I'm starting up my streaming more full-time. Since I moved, I have consistent internet and stuff like that. I'll be streaming night times about 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So tune in for that.
Yeah, so thanks to everybody who tuned in, and yeah, this didn't crash and burn as badly as I thought it would.
Well, given how it started.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, guys, let's wave bye.
Thanks to everybody who tuned
Bye.
in. This is going to be the
Bye.
awkward ending as usual. See ya.